Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make minimal tech house in the style of Dimmish and Toman. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets, everything from this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get going. So, we're at 126 BPM. This is a loop you heard in the intro. The first sound that we have here is the stab, which sounds like this. So here's the MIDI for this. What's happening here is it's basically playing this G minor 7 chord and then a G minor 9. So what we have here, as you can see, we have a G minor chord. We get the root note, minor third, and then the fifth. And then for the 7th, we add a minor 7th on top of that. And then for the 9th, we just add a 9th on top of that, which is actually, as you can see, just one note down from the 3rd. Or from the minor third, I should say. And yeah, and then this is just playing this kind of like... You can see I've got this swung a little bit. The 16th note is pushed back. And yeah, for the sound on this one, it's made using operators. So what we have here is this pretty simple sort of like FM sound where you can see we have 2 sine waves. But then I've done something a little bit different this time using this bandpass filter. And then what's happening is we have a shaper on the filter. So I'll show you. Here is without the filter. It doesn't really sound right. Like, it's a bit too dark and a bit too dull. But when we add this, it's filtering it, and then the shaper, which is something I haven't really done on here before, just gives it kind of like some more color. You can hear if I turn the shaper off. And then on again, it gives it like that kind of like oomph that you need. So yeah, definitely recommend that for getting kind of more interesting textured chord stabs. I know a lot of times with these types of stabs, it can be really easy to end up with like just a saw wave or just a square wave with a low pass filter and a little bit of an envelope. But you can see like by using FM synthesis and then using like cool stuff like the shaper inside of the filter here, we can make something a little bit more interesting and with a little bit of a different texture. I've got an LFO on the filter as well, just like slowly moving that throughout the track. You can hear that it's subtle. But what it's doing is it's making it so every single time you hear this, it's slightly different. And you may not even notice it right away, especially like when somebody who doesn't really know that much about production is hearing this. They may not notice that. But what's happening is like your brain is noticing subtly and subconsciously that the sound is like slightly changing. And yeah, it just makes it feel more organic and more real. Then after that, we have a bit of chorus to spread the sound out, and then I have some reverb to kind of give some space. You can see I've given that a really short size and a really short decay time, so it's just like a quick, snappy, like that. Then after that, we have some drum busts to fatten the sound up and really bring it into the track, and that is it for the first stab. The next sound we have here is the second stab, which sounds like this. So the chord that this is playing is actually one of the chords from above. You can see it's the same one as the second chord that I just showed you. It's just a G minor 9. So again, just a G minor chord. And then you add a minor 7th and a 9th on top of that. And it just gives it this more like jazzy, kind of like upbeat feel. Versus like if you just use the sad minor chord. You know, it communicates like something very particular, but when you add these, it kind of gives it more complexity and more like nuance, I feel like, in terms of like what the chord is telling you. For the sound on this one, it's made using analog. You can see we have a square wave, and then I have a saw wave, an octave up from that, and then the square wave is detuned a little bit. Those are going into a low-pass filter, which you can see has an envelope on it, as well as a bit of an LFO, so just like that last one, just kind of like slowly moving it throughout the track. And then I've also automated the frequency of the filters. You can hear that. And yeah, I like doing it this way where it's kind of like moving throughout now. Versus like if you just have it sitting in one place, it can get kind of boring. But it sounds really cool if you have like this long, repetitive track. And then you have like this one thing moving and changing so drastically throughout like that. Then after that, we got the amp envelope set like this. I've got a bit of unison, and that is it for inside the synth. After that, we have a bit of chorus, just sort of spreading the sound out, giving it a little bit more space. Then we have some reverb, which is doing the same thing. You can see, just like with that last one, I've got a really short size and decay time. I like using that because it makes it so the reverb isn't going to get in the way so much. This way, it's kind of more like, just giving it a little bit of extra background space, but it's not like ringing out so long like that. Then we just have a bit of drum bus to make the sound a bit bigger and a bit fatter. This also brings out the reverb a little bit. And then the last thing we have on there is a high pass filter. And that is it for the second step. The next track we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So with this kick, it's more about the type of sound you choose. The one I went with is this one, which is one that I made to be just kind of like a more fat 909 style kick. Like that's what you want here. It's like a 909 kick, but just like the fattest and most full version of that. If you guys want a video about making these fat 909 kicks, let me know, let me know in the comments, because I'll make a video about it. But yeah, so just got this like fat 909 style kick in here. And we got that going through a bit of EQ8, which is just boosting the low end and kind of cutting the low mid-range, cutting out a little bit of mud. And then the last thing on there is just a bit of drum bus. This one's pretty simple. It's more about just getting a really fat, powerful sound like this. After that, we have the bass, which sounds like this. So it's a little bit of a different bass this time than what I usually do in these types of videos. You can see this one is very deep and subby, and it's also pretty much just droning on one note. So this is something I've noticed both Toman and Dimmish and a lot of other producers in the style do, is just have this bass line that's just droning on one note. But I think what it does is it makes the low end very even throughout the track, because now you're only really hearing one thing, and you can get lost in that just strong, powerful low end with one note, versus if this was doing a whole bunch of other stuff, let's just say I'll have it do like this. You can hear the low end's a little bit less straight than when we have it like this. This way, I think it just makes it really, really clean and really simple. And then for the sound on this one, it's made using analog. You can see I got two saw waves going into a low pass filter with an envelope on it, just giving it that little subtle pluck. And yeah, then we have a bit of an amp envelope on that as well. Kind of short like the filter envelope. And then we just have a bit of drum bus to fatten the sound up, make it kind of a bit stronger. And then we have an EQ8, which is cutting at 100 hertz, as well as boosting the deep, deep lows to make a little bit of room for the kick, and then bring out the low end where the kick isn't really hitting. I've got the kick and the bass in a group together. This is a technique known as bussing, where you take similar elements and put them in a group together and process them as a group to kind of glue them together. I've got only just a little bit of saturation and a little bit of EQ here, so here's with nothing. And then with the effects, so you can hear it just gives it that extra little push. This isn't meant to do a whole lot to the sound. It's meant to be more just kind of a little extra push at the end like this. So yeah, just got a bit of saturation, which glues these together, makes them really hit a bit harder. And then we have an EQ8 to just kind of clean it up, just cutting out some low mid-range, cutting out some mud, and then boosting a bit of the mid-range, which is boosting the punch. And yeah, that is it for the low end bus. After that, we have the percussion, which sounds like this. So I've done this a little bit differently this time, where usually I'll do the percussion and the hi-hats in a group together. But I actually have the percussion and then the hi-hats in two separate groups. And I like to do this because it kind of allows you to process the percussion a little bit harder. Typically what I find is with percussion, you can put actually quite a bit of saturation on it and make it really, really fat before it will be just too blown out. But with hi-hats, if you start doing too much saturation, especially in the high end, here it gets really harsh really quickly. This is why I like doing two separate buses for the percussion and then the hi-hats, because you can kind of treat them a little bit differently and get an overall stronger sound. So with the percussion here, you can see it's mostly just this clap. And then I just have these two percussions playing around it. Just kind of like a fat rim shot, fat percussion, fat clap. Pretty simple stuff, you know. With this style, you just want to make sure you get like some really nice, high quality sounds. And if you want these ones, link is in the description. And then on the group with these, I've got a bit of drum bus and then a high pass filter. So here's without those. And then with them, so you can hear the drum bus not only makes everything hit just a lot harder, it makes it a lot fatter, but it's also just kind of like bringing the volume levels to a more even place, I feel like. You know, this way, everything's kind of sitting in an even place, and it feels more together when you put it all through the same saturation like this. And then the high pass filter just cuts out the line, you know, makes a bit of room. And yeah, that is it for the percussion. And then the last thing we have here will be the hi-hats, which sound like this. So with these, I have this main one. Just kind of like the sharp hi-hat on the upbeats. You can see I've shortened it a little bit. Usually with the style, you don't want like a super long one. Like even this one at its default length. It just feels a little bit weird. So if you shorten it like this with the amplitude envelope inside the simple, it fits into the track a bit better. And then we just have these two playing side by side with it. This one, which is more like a percussion. And then this one, which just goes. So yeah, just kind of like two very contrasting hi-hats, I feel like. Because this one is very like quick. And then you add this one and you just have something that's like. It adds a lot to the groove, I find, when you do that. It's definitely a good technique to have, like, an extra hi-hat, or sometimes it could be a crash or a ride or something like that, doing that little right in the middle of the beat. So then on the group of those, I have a bit of processing. Here is without it. And then with it. So you can see the first thing here is this audio effect track. And with this, I'm actually doing a bit of multiband processing. What multiband processing is where you split your hi-hats, or really anything that you put into it, into the different frequency ranges, and then you process them differently. So here, I've got the highs, and I've got the mids. And I didn't do lows, because these are hi-hats. We kind of don't really want any lows, especially with a mix like this that already has enough going in it. So what I've done here is you can see, yeah, we just have two chains inside the audio effect rack, and then I've just used the EQ3. So this is a really easy way to do it, because you can just turn on just the highs, and then just the mids, and the crossover point will always be perfect. The thing is, like, I've tried doing this in the past with an EQ8, like maybe doing something kind of like this. Like, you could sort of just make two curves here, and then maybe say, like, that's your mid-range, right? The problem is when you do this, then if we try to make another one, that would be the high end. And like, say we'll put it here, and then we'll put that other one up here. The problem is, see how there's like that little thing going down there? That tends to be an issue when you try to do this with the EQ8. But if you just do it with EQ3, it just cuts it super clean, and you don't have that problem. So that's what I've done. And then what I've done here is I've got saturation before these. So it's saturating everything. And then we're just bringing through the highs. Or the same thing with this. We have the drum bus on the mid-range. And then we're just bringing through the mid-range of that. So yeah, and the reason why I've split these is just because when you process them all at once, it was kind of what I was talking about before when I was showing you the percussion group. It's like, say I just put a drum bus on all of these at once. Here we're starting to get like some kind of weird stuff happening in the highs. It gets a little bit too crunchy. I don't really like that. So I like doing it this way where you just kind of split it. And now we can just saturate the highs and still get the nice power, but you can hear it's a lot cleaner now. And then we can still get that fat mid-range from the drum bus. So yeah, just again, kind of like a smoother way of doing it. And you know, you can avoid a lot of problems that you run into with saturation. And then I just have a bit of a high-pass filter on that afterwards, just cutting out some lawn and making sure that it's not going to get in the way of the mix. And yeah, that is it for the hi-hats. And that is also going to be it for this video, guys. So, I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video, as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all of that from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there, because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.